YCS Orlando has just concluded and things need to change. Hey guys, Otaku here back with another video, and today we will be doing a ban list prediction video. So YCS Orlando has just concluded and we will not probably see another ban list until the end of March when the next YCS concludes. We will probably see another live ban list reveal at another YCS because that was so well received last time. So most likely the end of YCS Houston, I believe, is the next YCS. However, between then, we have a couple new set drops. We have the Blue Eye Structure deck that comes out a week as of recording this video. And we also have the new Maze set, which will bring out 7th Tachyon, which will just give Ryzeal even more consistency. However, seeing as I was at YCS Orlando, I have noticed that there are a lot of things in the current format that need to change going into these new sets. But before we do jump on into the ban list prediction video, I have noticed that a great deal of you that watch my videos are not currently subscribed to the channel. So if you like competitive-based content, deck lists, or even tier lists, consider subscribing to the channel so I can continue to make videos like this one. But also on top of that, don't forget to leave a like on this video, comment down below your thoughts on what's going to get hit on the next list, but also take a look at the links down in the description below where I have a community Discord and also I stream on Twitch randomly. All right, so this is pretty straightforward. We have ban, limit, semi-limit, unlimit. A handful of the cards on here are just cards that are just nothing cards that will probably just come to unlimit. We're gonna knock those right out the way. We have Eva, Tsuchinoko, and Jackalope. They're all at semi-limit currently, and they've been making their way up the list ever since. They're probably just going to come to unlimit. They're not doing anything. Barrage is at 1 currently. It came off the list on the last list. It's probably going to go to 2 just because how Konami does things. There, we have those cards out of the way. All right, so let's talk about banned cards. Now, I have X'd on this list, and we will talk about X'd, but in a realistic world, I don't foresee Konami hitting Ryzeal or Malice directly on the next ban list, kind of like they did with Snake Eyes, where the first list was kind of a slap on the wrist towards their end board, like Baron and Savage Dragon. I think it's going to be a very similar scenario here, where they're going to be hitting cards in the deck that are not directly associated with the deck, but kind of facilitating the end board. And the biggest contender is going to be the engine that everyone is mad at as of late, or even since release, and that is Fiend Smith. I definitely foresee a world where Moon finally gets the axe in this next ban list. Now, yes, people can still make the argument that, oh, Ryzeal can still play Exciton Knight, which means they can still get to the Fiend Smith cards, and that is true. However, Moon gives a layer to the Ryzeal deck that can play around D-Barrier Calling Xyz, whereas Exciton Knight cannot do that, meaning that D-Barrier Calling Xyz against Ryzeal actually hurts a lot because it means it can't get to both of its engines. That being said, I also still just don't agree with D-Barrier being the answer to Ryzeal and Lancia being the answer to Malice, because they are just lingering effects that just shut the turn off entirely. But Moon also makes it so that any 2 monsters in any deck can make Fiend Smith combo, and I think it's about time she goes, especially since she is a common from Infinite Forbidden and a super rare from an OTS pack. Konami's not losing money banning this card. But also on top of that, the Fiend Smith cards have been out since Infinite Forbidden, and it's about time. They're a little due for getting hit on a Forbidden Limited list. Obviously, Lacrima got hit on the first list after Infinite Forbidden, but that was more based on the fact that it was abusing time rules and it was just so easy to summon. Whereas since then, we have not seen any sort of hits to the Fiend Smith engine, so I think it is about time that something gets hit. We're going to talk about Nightmare Goblin and Nightmare Mermaid. I foresee a world where these come to 1 off of the ban list. They are at 1 currently in Master Duel, and as far as I'm aware of, they're not doing anything. I think it is a realistic world that they come to limit from banned and proceed to not do anything, but also there is just a real world that Konami just keeps them on there. But it does seem like Master Duel as of late has been like testing ground for bringing very powerful cards from banned to 1, and if they proceed to not do anything, then they bring it to the TCG or the OCG. Same with like Barrage. Barrage has been at 1 in Master Duel for a long time, and they just recently brought it to 1 here in the TCG. So I foresee a world where these 2 come off this list or even just the next one. I do just want to point out that before we continue with the list, I don't expect all of these cards to be on the Forbidden Limited list. I'm just trying to make a realistic analysis on what possibly could be hit on the Forbidden Limited list, Not all these cards are going to be on there. We don't get giant, crazy, impactful lists every possible list, which is fine. But a lot of these cards do need to be talked about, and honestly, they all have potential to be on the list, but they're not all going to be on the list. Next is going to be Bonfire. This card has been a problem for way too long, like over a year now. Bonfire has been crazy in Snake Eye. It's crazy in Ryzeal because it can just search a Pyro monster. The thing is that even if we put it to 1 on the next list, by the time we get the next list, which will theoretically, obviously no guarantee, theoretically will be at the end of March. Even by then, we will have 7th Tachyon, so there's a chance Bonfire doesn't get hit just because it will probably just get replaced. Or we'll just see a Ryzeal playing 7th Tachyon and Bonfire, so they have 6 just Searcher 1-card starters. So there is just that realistic world as well, but I could foresee us following in the footsteps of the OCG and just putting this card to 1, meaning that the Ryzeal deck has 2 less searching options. Sticking on to the trend of limited, I think Bestial Druisworm's time has come. We are seeing Bestials in every deck, whether it's to counter the Fiend Smith cards or it is to facilitate the Malice cards. Bestials are everywhere, and Bestial Druisworm is the one getting played at 3 in almost every deck list right now. One could even make the argument that we put all of the Bestials to 1 like the OCG currently has, except for like Saranir, where he's like a little more specific. But I definitely see a world where Druisworm gets put to 1 because honestly, this card's still crazy. You just summon this card out, link it away, target the detonator, and the detonator is going to have to pop itself or Cross is going to have to negate it. A card that I think like overperformed and has been incredibly frustrating to deal with in this current format is Chaos Angel. It overperformed like crazy at the YCS Orlando, and I kind of see a world where this card gets banned. Aside from cards like Infinite Impermanence and even like the occasional droplet, there's not a lot of cards that deal with Chaos Angel right now. Like we have Metaltronus, and a lot of decks are playing Chaos Angel simply because they can summon it off of a Bestial plus a Ryzeal monster, or a Fiend Smith plus a Ryzeal monster, or just 2 Fiend Smith cards. It's really easy to make this card. And there are just ways to like out it, but I see a world where we just get rid of it because like, yes, there are ways to out it, but you have to see them, and this card is incredibly frustrating to deal with. Like the go-to play right now is just summon Chaos Angel and like nuke one of the back rows because either it's an imperm or it's nothing. Abyss Dweller is also a card I could see getting hit on the ban list. Abyss Dweller did just get banned in the OCG. I see a world where it gets banned here in the TCG simply because it's just another one of those lingering effects that, depending on the deck, just shuts everything off, and Ryzeal just makes this so easy. In fact, it is like one of their go-to end boards. Also, on top of that, this just kills Mitsurugi. If they can't activate their cards in the graveyard, they're just not playing the game. Dweller is just a card that is constantly in and out of the format, but every time it's in the format, it is just a problem, and every time it is in the format, we are all calling for its head. I think it is just time to do what the OCG did and nuke this card. Get it out of the game. Konami has been very, very good lately on the past few lists on hitting these lingering floodgates, whether it's to 1 or banning them all outright. So I think they need to continue in this trend and hit these cards that have lingering effects. I don't have an issue with a floodgate. I have an issue with a floodgate that lingers for an entire turn or even just the entire game. However, on top of that, Dweller is very easy to resummon thanks to Eclipse Twins in Ryzeal. So it's like they can just use both of its effects for 2 turns in a row and then link it away as long as Eclipse Twins is like underneath it or somewhere else on the board, and then Eclipse Twins bring it back and just reload it. Caesar is another card I see possibly getting hit on the ban list. And again, this is where I really want to reiterate that I don't think all of these cards are going to be on the ban list. So if you're in the comment section, which you're probably already there, I don't think every card on this list is going to get banned or limited or semi-limited or whatever. I just think that these cards have realistic possibilities of getting put on the ban list and possibly put banned or limited. I don't think they're all going to be there. I just think they all have the possibility of being there. Caesar is also just a really real possibility because Caesar is just kind of a counter to Nibiru. It's a counter to Bestials. It's counter to Malice. This card is just really insane when it hits the board because it just kind of has this blanket effect of, okay, well, you haven't nibbed me yet, now you're not going to at all. And nib is really strong. Now, however, the reason I could see this not getting hit is simply just for that reason. Nib is this overlying threat that if we don't have cards that can kind of counter Nibiru, then Nibiru is just going to be everywhere just winning games for free. So I could see Caesar not getting hit, but I can also see Caesar getting hit. It kind of goes 50-50. Summon Sork, honestly, the fact this isn't limited yet is crazy because the card is eroded, so I don't understand why it's not limited yet, but like, come on, Konami, just bring her to 1. Like, what's she gonna do? Fiend Smith Engraver, I can see him going to 1. The OCG's had him at 1 for a while. Fiend Smith has not really been seeing a whole lot of play because of it. I think Engraver to 1 puts on this overlying threat to the Fiend Smith cards that, hey, yeah, you can play these cards, but if your opponent has a single Bestial, you just lose the entire engine entirely. I could see a world where Engraver goes to 1. We don't have any sort of Fiend Smith support on the back burner for Alliance Insight as far as I know of, which means that Konami very well could just hit this engine now in full capacity and just nuke it because, you know, they're not trying to sell it anymore. They've already got their money from their engravers and they're got their money from Infinite Forbidden, Rage, all that sort of stuff. So if Moon doesn't get hit, I could foresee Engraver getting put to 1. I don't think both are going to happen. There's a really real world where like Engraver gets put to 1 and Moon just sticks around because, again, Bestials are so prevalent in the format as of late that if Engraver hits the graveyard and you're trying to bring it back and your opponent has a Bestial, you just lose the entirety of your Fiend Smith engine, which puts the risk of, do I want to play this? All right, so like I said towards the beginning of the video, I don't think Ryzeal or Malice will be hit directly. I think a lot of what facilitates their play will get hit, like Fiend Smith, for example, or even just like, we're going to talk about Nightmare Griffin here in a minute, or even Bestials for Malice, but I don't think the decks directly will get hit. That being said, if Ryzeal was to get hit, I do think X would get put to 1. The reason being is a common thing I saw at Orlando, and a common thing that's just been going on for a hot minute, is that they'll summon X off of Ice's effect, search off of X, and then probably search Sword, do their combo with Fiend Smith stuff, and then they will special out X because they haven't used his special summon effect. So they'll special Sword, Sword search X, summon X, make Duo Drive search Cross and Node, and then just proceed to make plays there. It is incredibly annoying this card hits the board twice in the same turn if allowed to. I think putting X to 1 really makes Ryzeal players think, hey, do I want to summon this off of Ice right out the gate and give up my ability to put Twins or Aggregator into the graveyard, or do I summon out Sword and then risk doing my full combo and not getting the search off of X? I think putting this card to 1 is a big must for the Ryzeal deck. Whether it is on this list or the next list is debatable, but if Ryzeal was to get a direct hit on this ban list, I think it would be X going to 1. Now, a big hit to Malice, I could foresee Nightmare Griffin going. Nightmare Griffin's been really annoying for a very long time. We have been seeing Nightmare Griffin getting play in Unchained back in Duelist Nexus format. Some Snake Eye Brews were toying with it. Obviously, I was toying with it in Chimera. Like, at the end of the day, if you could summon out Nightmare Griffin, you probably were. This card is really, really strong, and Malice just makes it super easy and then brings it back on your main phase with the Abawaku. And this card can just shut a game off, especially if you've already used X effect to put Aggregator into the graveyard, then Griffin's just going to shut the game out entirely. So I see a world where Griffin finally gets hit on the ban list. Now, a lot of you are probably in the comments like, oh, hey, don't see any Malice cards on here, whereas I see a Ryzeal card. That's simply because Malice is a very strong deck. However, I think if you hit any sort of the mainline cards right now, it is incredibly fragile. The Trap's already being played at 1. The Link's already being played at 1. The main deck monsters, if you don't see a Dormouse, you're hurting. If you see a Rabbit but no other names, you're hurting. We're already playing Cat at 1, possibly 2. They could limit Cat, but okay. You could put the field spell to 1, but then sure, that's fine. But the Malice deck is so incredibly fragile, it's hard to say what directly you would hit. I could see maybe Dormouse going to 2 if I had to guess. But at the end of the day, I don't think Ryzeal or Malice will be directly hit. It'll be the cards that are facilitating their plays and their end boards. Speaking of Malice, though, Shifter, I'm going to be realistic here. I don't think Shifter's getting banned. As much as I would love this card to get banned, like, I play Malice and I still hate this card. I'm Shifter's biggest hater. I hate this card so much. Like, I'm sorry, GGYGO, you're not watching this video, but if you are, I hate this card more than you. Shifter is just incredibly annoying. It wins games on its own, even in the current format. Like, sure, Ryzeal can play under it, but, like, Fiend Smith can't play under it. X can't summon itself from hand if Shifter is on the field, or, like, in play, I mean. So I see a world where Shifter gets hit. Banned, I'm just going to stop coping. I could see Shifter getting put to 2, possibly even limited, but this card can't stay at 3. Like, come on now. Konami, listen to the community. We want this card hit in some capacity. Like, hit it. And Malice is, and the problem here is that we can't hit Ryzeal too hard, because then Malice will become the overlying dominant threat in the format. So we have to, like, kind of wrist slap Malice at the same time. Even that's coming from someone who plays Malice. Artifact Lancia. This card's gotta go. And yes, you could type in the comments, oh, you're a Malice player, of course you want Lancia to go, because then we can't beat you, or we can't shut your turn off. I agree with the last part. I want Lancia gone because Lancia shuts off the turn for Malice. I don't think any sort of lingering Floodgate that turns off the game in any capacity for any deck is a fair card. And Lancia is one of those cards. Lancia, for the longest of times, has been one of those cards that anytime it's in the format, it's a problem. And sure enough, here it is now. It shuts off the game for Malice. And don't type in the comments, if we don't have Lancia, we don't have a counter for Malice, because that's just not true. Molcharmy, Fualas, and Molcharmy Meows are counters. Now, yes, Lancia is the budget option. I understand that. But Fualas is getting reprinted in Stampede, and there's possibility that the other Charmies get reprinted in Stampede as well. We obviously have no confirmation of that, but if Fua is, I can see a world where the other two do as well. So there are options to countering out Malice than just Lancia, and proof of that is simply, you're not going to see Lancia every game. Do you lose every game you don't see Lancia? Because the moral of the story is, you might not lose every game you see Lancia, but Malice almost loses every game you do see Lancia. So this card's just kind of got to go. It's just, it shuts off the game. Also, another reason I could see Lancia getting banned is because it is the budget option. We know how Konami works. The ban list is here to get you to buy more cardboard, to promote more product. How are you going to buy more Supreme Darkness and Molcharmy Meows if you're playing Lancia? Come on, let's go. Like, come on, people. Think. Kashtira Unicorn. So Kashtira is still, like, existent in the format. Kashtira Fiend Smith is a thing, but if Fiend Smith gets hit, then Kashtira probably won't get hit. I see a big possibility of Kashtira just, again, still being untouched in the current format. But if for some reason it would get hit, I think it would be Unicorn getting put to 1. Unicorn is a fucking unit of a card, but the reason I could see this not getting touched at all is simply because Unicorn punishes interacting with your opponent, which I think that if you are going to successfully resolve certain hand traps, there should be that world where you do get punished. And Unicorn is kind of like that threat. Same with Fenrir, but Unicorn, yes, touching the extra deck is really annoying, like stay out of my extra deck, but at the end of the day, he keeps you on your toes thinking about, hey, should I interact with a monster effect here? So, but I could see a world where Unicorn gets hit to 1. I think that's unlikely, personally. I think he's going to stay at 3. The Kashtira cards haven't really been, like, the center of people's attention, even with it having the Fiend Schmidt deck. But, you know, we'll see. And then Heavy Metal Foes, Electromite. Why is this card not limited yet? Like, why is it not back? I don't play Pendulum, and, like, I still think this card's fine. Like, I'm not even speaking from a biases. I think this card's fine coming back to 1. I don't see a world where people are going to immediately be like, yep, Pen best deck because Electromite's back. Like, maybe Triff, but Triff's already playing, you know, Ryzeal and Mitsurugi. Good decks, not Pendulum. So, yeah, I just see a world where, like, Electromite, even if it comes back to 1, like, I don't see it being an issue, especially because we can just have so many ways to interact with it now as opposed to when it first came out. So yeah, I think this card's fine. It could come back. And that's really it for my Forbidden and Limited list prediction. Again, I don't think all of these cards are going to be on the list. I probably missed some cards that will come off the list or go onto the list. But I think every card on this image has the realistic possibility of being somewhere on the list, whether it's banned, limited, or semi-limited. I think the possibility is certainly real. Whether it happens or not, we're gonna have to see. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Like this video. Also, if you're not already and you like competitive based content, consider subscribing to the channel so I can continue to make videos like this one. But with that, I'll see you all in the next video. See ya.